So you got to have something akin to a calling that sustains you. If you're just doing business for money only, you won't make it. You won't make it because it's too hard. Money's not gratifying enough to cause you to fight.
Welcome to At the Table, the podcast that lives at the connection between work life, culture, organizational health, and leadership. And today, for the second time ever, we have a guest host, a very special one. Dave Ramsey, a dear friend of mine. Everybody knows who Dave Ramsey is. I'm sure he doesn't like this, but he's the guru of really managing finances. But far more than that, it's how to run a company, how to be a leader. A dear friend of mine. And Dave, only Craig Groeschel, a friend of yours, has also been a co-host with us before. And we've been talking about doing this for years, and we're finally doing it. And it's great to have you on.
Well, I'm honored to be here. And if I can do anything that's anywhere near Craig Groeschel, I'm in. Let's do it.
You and me both. So Dave, what we're going to do is, rather than just do an interview, because people can find interviews all over the place, I want to take apart a topic and give your perspective on that. And what we're going to do, we're titling today's podcast Hard Times, which was the title of a book by Charles Dickens. It was a hard book to read too. But what I want to talk to you about today, something that you have in your story, because everybody does, and I love this part of your story, and you help people who are also going through hard times. It's how do we as leaders and running an organization and being an organization see the good that comes out of hard times, the necessity of dealing with those things, and not let it discourage us. Now, I want to say before we get started, you have a book that just came out called Build a Business You Love. And I'm going to tell you something else. You also wrote another business book called Entree Leadership. I don't do a lot of reading of business books because I'm usually writing and working on my own stuff. But yours are my favorites because they are so clear, actionable, accessible, practical, and simple. And this book, Build a Business You Love, is just like that. I read it and I think, gosh, I wish I had said these things in my books because they're so compelling. And one of the things you do is you talk about the 5 stages of really starting a business and running a business, all the way from the earliest treadmill stage to the passing it on to somebody else. And one of the things as I read it, I realized throughout the process, there are difficult times. And most of us think about running a business and want it to be always in good times. So what is your overall thoughts about how to deal with adversity?
Well, I mean, you're right. And it seems like that, one of the rewards we get for having leveled up and dealing with adversity and getting a little bit more sophisticated is we get a new set of problems. We get a new type of adversity. And so I don't know if you graduate ever from the school of adversity and never have to see it again. It just takes different forms. It comes at you in different models, I guess, or formats, whatever. And so, I mean, what I thought was adversity when I was starting is laughable now. Probably when I look back on these last couple of years, I will look back on that and go, well, that was no big deal. I mean, but when you're in it, it can be overwhelming. One of the things we know about adversity, for me anyway, and I guess it's probably true for most folks, is if you're not careful, it can steal your perception. It can steal your perspective. And so, in other words, you can feel like, it's a lot bigger deal than it really is. There's a drama queen in my head that wakes up when this stuff happens and says, oh, the world's coming to an end. Chicken Little, get your helmet. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. And it's really not. It's just a momentary thing that we're dealing with. But I over dramatize it in my head. And so it gets right in front of my face, and so I can't see. I lose my perspective on the thing. And so if I can just step back into my personal faith journey and say, all right, God, would you help me? I'm going to step back in prayer. I'm going to try to get above this thing and see, okay, this is a real problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem, but it is not the end of the world. It's not the end of our business. It's not the end of our career. It's not the end of our reputation. And I remember the first time we had someone write a hit piece on us, a negative article in the press. I thought, oh, man, oh, my gosh. And a week later, I was the only one on planet Earth still thinking about it. Even the guy that wrote it had moved on. But I'm the only one. And it just really, it was a small blip. It really did not have any impact, except it hurt my feelings and made me mad. But really, I thought, oh my gosh, everyone is going to see that, and all the work we've done for, decades is going to be undone by this one jackleg semi-qualified reporter who made up stuff. But it didn't. It was a non-issue, and but. And so now when that stuff comes at us, and we still get some negative press occasionally for different odds and ends, somebody just decides they're going to come at us. Now we have a different perspective. We go, oh, well, good luck with that. It didn't work the first 27 times, and it's not going to work now.
So after you go through that a number of times, you get better at dealing with it and having a better perspective. Take us back to the card table days. I know people probably ask you about that, but a lot of people don't know that story. And this whole thing that you do got birthed out of hard times, right?
Yeah, we went broke. Sharon and I started from nothing when we got out of college, and we were buying and selling real estate. And I was stupid, and I took on too much debt. And the short version is, after becoming a millionaire, starting from nothing at 26 and making seriously good money, at least for a kid from Antioch, Tennessee, then the bank called our notes, and we spent the next 2.5 years of our life fighting with all that and adversity, losing everything. One year, I made $250,000, which that was in the 80s. So today, that'd be like $1 million. It was a great year. The next year, I made $6,000 because I spent the whole year selling stuff, trying to meet the obligations with the banks, trying to keep the foreclosures from happening, and still wasn't able to do it. But 2.5 years later, with a brand new baby and a toddler and a marriage hanging on by a thread, we were at the bottom and hit hard. And I was so scared I couldn't breathe. But yeah, that's. And I met God on the way up, got to know him on the way down. And, that thing. And, I was a baby Christian. I was a baby. I was 28 years old and with babies. And so, I didn't, I started learning what the Bible says about money, and what old people that had common sense said about money is the same thing. Get out of debt, live on less than you make, be on a budget, be generous, these kinds of things. And so, we started living our lives very specifically that way as the only way we knew how to begin to heal from that, because it was hard on every facet of our lives. It wasn't just a financial setback.
Well, and that's the thing when you're dealing, and I've been to your office when people who are debt-free come in to do their debt-free scream, and they celebrate that they've finally gotten out from under it all. And it is not just financial. It is about every part of your life. Now, the question I have for you, Dave, is what would you, had you not gone through that, what would you be doing today? Would you still be in real estate? I mean, how did that really difficult situation, how did that play out in terms of changing the course of your career and where you are today?
Well, it started, I guess, okay, we had to figure out something I have learned to this point did not work. I'm thinking about, okay, I've got a degree in finance, and here I sit bankrupt. So my finance professor in college, who was broke, said, borrow all you can. So I think probably, a finance professor that's broke's like a shop teacher with missing fingers. So I needed a new mentor. I needed some new inputs. And so we said, okay, so it started with us just learning something after we did an autopsy on our stupidity, and said, okay, I've got to learn. There's got to be some takeaways so I don't go back. I don't want to repeat. So, okay, what went wrong here? Well, I violated these basic common sense things and built a house of cards. And no kidding, it came down. So, okay, we started living. It was the first thing. And then a pastor called me from the church and said, hey, there's a guy in my office, and pastors don't know beans about doing a budget themselves usually. And so he said, there's a guy in my office getting foreclosed on. He goes, can you help him? And I'm like, yeah, I used to buy foreclosures, and then I was one. Yeah, I can definitely help him. And so I went over and sat down with him and his wife and cried with them, and was able to get on the phone with a mortgage company and worked out a deal, a forbearance where they pay payments and catch up, and saved his house. And when you do that once at the church, you get to do it like 27 more times. So it started. Then I started end up coaching or counseling, if you will, just as a ministry. And so it turned into a curiosity. I went, this stuff works not only for me and Sharon, but I can show these people who are hurting a way out, and I can help them get some of the condemnation and shame off of it, because I've been there too, and just share my personal story of failure, which lets other people be free. And so it went to a curiosity, and then a guy called me from a restaurant group in the area and said, "Hey, one of my managers has an IRS lien on his house. He's getting ready to lose his house. Can you help you? I'll pay you a consulting fee." And I went, yeah. And I went over and helped him get that wiped out and get it moved around. And then he goes, "Hey, would you come speak to our managers group?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'll pay you." And I'm like, "How much?" And he said, $250. I went, "Wait a minute, you're going to pay me to talk?" Oh, I like this gig. And so, so that, it went from curiosity to the beginnings of a career. And then the further we got into it, the more we realized the power of the wounded healer, person who's been wounded, walking in something and setting folks free. And so it went from, personal to curiosity to career to calling. And then that's been the last 40 years is calling. But it started on a card table in my living room.
It's so crazy because I've heard the story, but every time I hear it from you in a different context, I learn different things. But so what happened is you suffered and got hit really hard. And then you became generous in helping other people. You didn't wait till you were perfect. You started helping people out of your poverty, if you will, both literally and figuratively. And through that, you came to discover the business, the work that you loved and that's changed the world. When you look back, it's like you could not have done that had you not suffered. Like you said, you were the wounded healer. To be a wounded healer, you have to get wounded. And so many people think in life that I'm supposed to avoid wounds at all cost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unless you're like psychologically disordered, you try to avoid wounds. Right. I mean, nobody walks into it on purpose. That would be weird. But then when it comes, we don't act like, like you're the first person this has ever happened to. A friend of mine got cancer a while back and said, "How's it feel when the doctor walks in and says that diagnosis and you're sitting there on the table?" And he goes, I thought to myself, "Oh, that's what it feels like. They get that diagnosis." And I said, "Did you ask why me?" And he goes, "No, I kind of said, why not me? I mean, there's a lot of people with cancer." He said, "Why not me? Why would I be different?" And I thought, wow, that was pretty. I don't know if I'm going to be that generous with myself or not, but man, that's a wonderful perspective. And to go, well, why not me? What suffering is here? I shouldn't be shocked. Why not me?
It's crazy as I'm talking to you. I think about it's ridiculous to think that your job is to help people just with finance, because you help people with things. I mean, I listen to your radio show, right? I know what the debt snowball is. I know the advice you give, but you give that financial advice in the context of life advice. And I think every leader and every manager is involved in ministry far more than just the details of what they're doing. And so as I'm sitting here listening to this, it's ridiculous to think that Dave Ramsey is a finance guy, because I think you're a wisdom guy, and that wisdom comes from scars, like all people. But the thing I want to ask you about is this word that you just used, and that is, so when something bad happens to somebody, shame, I think, is the crusher. Mm-hmm. Shame is the crusher. So looking back, or somebody's listening to this and they're struggling in their business or in financially or as a leader or whatever else is going through, how do you fight off shame?
I sometimes when I'm talking to somebody on the radio and they go, "Well, I did this thing and it was really stupid and I was stupid and stupid. And I'm like, "Yeah, it was stupid. I get you. I agree. Welcome to the human race, dude." I mean, I've never met anybody who hadn't done anything stupid at one point or another. different flavors, different sizes of stupid, different time frames of stupid. But I mean, most everybody I run into has done some level of stupid at some point. And some of us made a living doing it. I mean, it's like I fail forward, I think, around here. So I look at some of the stuff we try and I look back on it and I go, well, that was stupid. But we tried it, it didn't work. And it was like we lost some money and lost some pride in the process. But, shame, I think, comes from when we take the failure, whatever it is, the stupid thing that we trip on, and turn that into our identity instead of an action. So a scientist, when they make a mistake, they call it experimenting.
Right.
It's like, okay, that means I found another way that doesn't work. So let's find a way that does work. And we keep trying to, change the formula, change the, the chemical compound, whatever it is you're working with, whatever it is, to change something and iterate, and fail forward until you narrow in on the thing that actually works. But scientists don't come out, they don't go, oh, it didn't work the first time I tried it, and I must not be a very good scientist, and I must be really dumb, and all these degrees I have and letters after my name, and I failed. They don't internalize the shame. They don't turn it into an identity. They just go, it's an experiment, didn't work. And I think that's a form maybe of grace, if we wanted to step into the spiritual side, is just giving yourself grace and going, I'm part of the human race. I'm not perfect. Who knew?
Right. The failure is a verb, not a noun. It's something that happened. It doesn't define you. I was just yesterday with an executive team of a really great company that's struggling. And it was interesting because I think they can even go through, I talk to leaders and they're like, why is this happening to us? And should I try to find another, and these people weren't saying that necessarily, but should I go work someplace else? And there's this idea that as a leader, you want to be leading in good times. But like I was saying to them, it's like, this is why you're a leader. It's for this time. And leading through difficult times is really, when we sign up to be a leader, we start a business. It's like, because it's going to get hard. It's like you get married and they say, for better or for worse. Well, you prove your worth when it's worse.
Yeah.
And yet when it comes, we want to run from that. And I mean, I know I feel that way too sometimes. And yet you look back and it's the scar tissue that makes you tougher. And, but now what happens, Dave, as you get to this place? And I'm like, so next week there's going to be a big challenge. How do you deal with it differently today than you would have 20 years ago?
Well, I try to use the faith builders that got me to this point. These other things happened and we didn't die from them. We weren't put out of business by them. And so, this is a pain in the butt. I don't like it. I'm mad about it. I'm going to fight and try to work our way through the thing. But it's probably not going to, be very weird if it did take us out, because nothing to this point has taken us out. Not that we're invincible. That's not the point. But the point is that these things in our head, the drama queen tells us that the sky is falling, and it's really not. It's a temporary disorder, and we've got to work through the grossness of it. We have to clean up the poop, and just shoveling poop is part of leadership, right? And that's just what we do.
Yeah, that was my question you just repeated from the beginning, because you're right. That's what you have learned. Okay, I want to ask you about these 5 stages in a company, because I think it's fascinating. And I haven't thought about it like this. And a lot of this we can think of it. You do a lot of work with entrepreneurs, and you have Entre Leadership, the book, one of my favorite business books of all time, Entre Leadership, so practical and accessible. And this Build a Business You Love, you do a lot. You have the Entre Leadership Summit that you do. So you're really helping people who are starting businesses and then growing those businesses, sometimes quite large. But this early stage, the first stage of running a business, you call it the stage of being a treadmill operator. And it's about where it's all up to you. You're doing all the work. You don't feel like you're making a lot of progress, but you got to keep going, because if you stop, everything else stops. And think back about, I remember that stage at the table group. And so what advice do you give to somebody in the treadmill stage?
The biggest advice is don't stay there. It's not sustainable, because you're just running your legs off. I mean, you just go. It's an exciting time. It's when you've your dream has been born. You've opened the business. You're enthusiastic. You're ignorant about how hard this is going to be, so you still think you can do it real quick. And it's all that. All that's really wonderful. But all the revenue depends on you, and all of the production depends on you. And so if you step off the treadmill, the income stops. If you get sick or you want to take a vacation, the income stops. And so technically at this stage, you don't even own a business. You just own your job. And so our friend Michael Berger that wrote E-Myth, you and I both know Michael, and he says in the E-Myth, learn to work on your business, not just in it. At this stage, you're just working in it. And I would come home from work and I put in a 15-hour day and I would flop on the couch and lay back and roll my eyes, and Sharon would go, well, what'd you do today? I said, I don't know, but I did a lot of it. And it's just, it's a lot of chaos, and you're just going, and there doesn't seem to be a plan. It's crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis. And so that is not a 10-year plan. You can't sustain that. You can do it for a year, maybe two. But most of the time, you need to get up and out of that as fast as you possibly can before the excitement wears off and the fatigue sets in of this, and it becomes a slog.
I love that, because it is exciting in that initial stage, because you go, hey, that worked. And then you're like, and I have to do it again tomorrow and the next day. Now, here's what's key, though, I think, Dave, is you better love at least the work itself. Because
yeah.
And I know people that have started businesses they don't particularly like. It's like they build a business they don't like, and so you can't even get the treadmill phase right away. The burnout hits.
You're not going to make it.
Right.
Small business at every stage is just too hard. If you're not doing something that makes you smile, that causes you to just go, whoo, we just scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. By God, here we go. If you don't get your juices going from it, you can't keep at it. There's too much crap comes at you. It's too hard. And so you got to have something akin to a calling that sustains you. If you're just doing business for money only, you won't make it. You won't make it because it's too hard. Money's not gratifying enough to cause you to fight and push through the fatigue. And I got the flu, but I got to go to work anyway because I'm the only, by God, one that gets this stuff done. And that's the stuff you're doing at the treadmill stage.
Yes. I talked to a CEO the other day. He was being funny about it, but he's like, we need to increase our revenue. So I decided, I went online, I asked ChatGPT, what should I do? And he said, buy an HVAC company. Because when you buy HVAC companies, they increase in value. He goes, so that's what we're going to do. Now, they were not even in that business. But it's so funny that people think you make money by finding a business that makes money. But if you don't want to run that business, you're not going to do well.
No,
and you're not going to be,
I don't want to be the customer of that company.
Exactly. We've all been the customer of that company.
Yeah,
so you go from the treadmill to the next two stages, which is the Pathfinder and then the Trailblazer stage. They're not the same thing. Tell me about what those look like.
Well, to level up out of treadmill, you've got to get above your business and block time and actually become good at time management. And you've got to start doing your first hires so that there's somebody else that's a worker bee alongside you that's making the revenue, making the widgets, so that it's not all dependent on you. So you get your first couple of hires in. You're starting to do a budget, and you're doing treadmill, and you're doing you're doing some good time management, and that's going to level up, like you said, into Pathfinder at that point. Now, Pathfinder is a lot of fun also because now you've got some camaraderie. Now you got a band of brothers, a band of sisters that are fighting with you, but there's still a lot of chaos. It's just now we're trying to nail Jello to a tree. Now we're trying to herd cats because there's 10 of them and they're running everywhere and nobody knows what the other one's doing. But buddy, we're doing a lot of it, and now we're doing it at scale. So we're doing chaos at scale. And that's normal and that's fine. But you really need to, at this stage, begin to do stuff like, okay, I'm going to start to lay out, okay, what's our vision? What's our mission? We have to start thinking about what's the spiritual part that's driving this movement? What are our core values, like my friend Pat Lencioni talks about all the time? Mm-hmm. You start to lay down, how are we making decisions, in other words? What's guiding us to make tough choices and to avoid other choices and those kinds of things? Role clarity. real clear. You got a lot of generalists on the team at this stage, and you need to get a little bit more specific. This person's doing this. They don't have the working genius on that, so they don't need to be over there. They need to be over here. And you start to get them, as our friend Jim Collins would say, on the right seat on the bus, not just on the bus. And this is a stage that you really have to increase communication, because the frustration goes with the chaos. Trust starts to break down. Gossip can kick in because everybody's going hard. You've weeded out the ones that aren't working hard, that are just there to collect a check. They don't fit because everything's too rough and tumble right now. And so that's Pathfinder. When you do that, then, as you said, you'll level up to the Trailblazer. And the Trailblazer is where you actually start doing your planning probably for the first time. When I hit Trailblazers, when I learned how to spell strategic. I didn't even know how to spell it, much less do it. I was tactical. Thank God. I got to make payroll Friday. We got to get the receivable collected. We got to get the stuff, ship it, get it done, iterate it, go do the speech, go do the book, get the thing done. And then we started backing up a little bit and saying, okay, we're going to get above this thing and not just be down in the weeds all the time. And I hired a few people that had MBAs. And I don't have an MBA. I don't have a graduate degree. But 100% of the MBA programs, apparently, from my observation, teach strategic thought. And so these MBAs started teaching me and telling me the importance of strategic thought. It's like, Dave, you run up there and just run into the wall. If you would be above it, you could turn right and turn left and not have to run into the wall. You just want to knock it down. Why don't you walk around it? It's less calories. And so, but that's that 30,000 foot view, right? And I always laugh and say these wonderful MBA folks taught me, they taught me strategic thought, and I taught them how to work. So, but so that's the Trailblazer, and you get in. Craig Rochelle, our friend, talks about this a lot because he and I have compared notes on this a lot. That this is the stage where you really have to say, I don't like bureaucracies. I don't like the way corporate America thinks. It treats people poorly. But in spite of that, I still have to have solid systems. I still have to have solid processes. And if you don't have systems and processes, you're just killing trees everywhere, stuff stacked in the corner. We had 73 different spreadsheets trying to tie them together and call that an accounting system. It was awful. But buddy, we were getting it done, and so, so when you move from Trailblazer then, and you start doing these things, you get some organizational, you and I probably met at this time because I had met you through your books. You were speaking some with us and some of these events, and we're doing some organizational development. We're building intentional culture. You sat in on some of our operating board brainstorming stuff back as early as 2012, probably something like that. And that's when we struck up a friendship, because we were right in the rough and tumble of learning how to do that stuff for the first time. Then you level up and you go to the probably most fun stage. You'll go to peak performer. And that's probably the most fun stage.
Everybody wants to be in that stage all the time, but you can't be. But that's the stage you want to get to.
Yeah, because everything's working. I mean, systems are in place, planning is in place. You've got about 3 levels minimum of leadership probably at that point. So you've got leaders that are leading people. And so it's a lot of concept, a lot of culture is very, very important. Everything's working. The product is starting to hum, and the profits are there. You're stacking cash. I mean, there's a basement full of cash. It's awesome. You are making money. And everything you touch seems to turn to gold. You kind of got the Midas touch. People want to write articles about you because you're smart. Now, finally, where were they back in the days when you weren't smart? But anyway, now that all this stuff is going on, and boom, 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 boom. And at this stage, you look better than you really are, but you got momentum. And that's what momentum does for you. And so I love this stage.
But I love what you said here. There's something you have to guard against in this stage.
There's only one problem at this stage, and that's hubris. Yeah. And you'll, again, How the Mighty Fall, Jim Collins talks about it. And hubris is, I'm as smart as everybody thinks I am. No, you're not. No, you're not. You still got to break it before it's broken. You still got to shock the monkey. You still got to and reset the organization chart. You still got to do fruit basket turnover ever so often. You got to do whatever it is that we got to do to keep the vital, to keep the thing vital, to keep it alive, instead of just believing your own press is slowing down. Because as soon as you take your foot off the accelerator, your competition or the wave of disruption will just run over your butt. And so this is the time you better play hard. We have momentum in the second half of the game. Put the ball in the end zone. Oh, and then do it again. And then do it again. Don't stop and go, oh, we got the game. No, finish the game. Play hard, play hard. And I don't know how long you stay in these different stages. Again, I would go all the way back to treadmill and say maybe a year, 2 at the most is all you can do. But I meet companies that stay in these other stages. We've been it's 35 years walking through these 5. So, we've averaged 7 years a stage, but not really. It's been more than that in some of the stages. So I like to think we've been in Pathfinder, but really 16 years ago, we started working on stage 5. I'm 64. When I was 48, I realized I'm going to die someday. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that before, but when I die, then this place is going to fold up like a Walmart tent, and if we don't have a plan and some kind of succession planning for leadership, for ownership, brand transfer. If I'm the whole brand and I die, this thing it evaporates. And we started working on that 16 years ago. So we've been in, of the 35, almost 40 years, we've been in legacy stage / Pathfinder, straddling the two, our peak performer, straddling the two back and forth for about 16 years and working on succession.
Well, and then there's departments, and you say in the book that sometimes you repeat some of these things. So there's parts of the business that probably can go back into Pathfinder state. You know what I mean? It's not as though it's mutually exclusive, and there's still elements of all of it probably that are going on depending on how things are evolving, I would guess.
Exactly. Once you realize the stages exist and what it takes to level up, though, so you launch a brand new product, that new team, they're treadmill. Because we're hitting the street with it. But it might only last a few months that it's treadmill, right? And you're going to bring them on up through the stuff because you're standing above that, having been there with the whole organization in the past and saying, okay, we're going to bring this department or this product line or this P&L, we're going to bring it along and we're going to take the vice president of that area and walk them through like we were consulting a standalone small business, but they're part of our team. And so let's just get them on, get them up. So they're going to learn to do strategic planning way faster than I did. I didn't even know what I was missing. They're going to learn to do, thematic goals, to use some of your phrasing, and they're going to learn to do, look out into the future where there is no vision, the people perish a lot quicker, and boom, they'll catch up with the peak performer business quicker than, and sometimes you've got one that's not a brand new one, but it just gets the flu. It's a problem area. It's broken. Right. And so
you got to go back there.
It kind of, you got penalty steps. You have to step back till you get back through these things because you missed something. You leveled up too quick, or you leveled up and then relaxed and then the thing died off on you. And so are we going to have a necessary ending, as our friend Henry Cloud would say, or are we going to reset and walk back through these stages with that area?
You know something, Dave? We're going to wrap up here just a second, but one of the things that shocks me about you, as a guy who spends so much time giving other people advice, and you're very comfortable with that, you're very good at that, it's fun to listen to you do that. I don't think of anybody, I mean this sincerely, I don't think I've worked with any friend, client, partner, whatever, your friend, who learns more. Like, you take other people's stuff and apply it. Like, you use some of our stuff better than any client we've ever worked with. You have all this new information.
Well, it's good. Of course we do.
You're a curator of good stuff, and you're very generous about saying, I learned this from them, and I'm going to use that. Whereas a lot of people that are experts feel like if I didn't invent it, I can't use it.
Oh man, I wouldn't be. The stacks of books that would be around my recliner that caused me to get here by Pat Lencioni, John Maxwell, Craig Groeschel, Henry Cloud, Jim Collins. There's just stacks of those books. And of course, man, the guy that started this thing couldn't run it today. He was dumber than a rock. I mean, he had to learn some new stuff.
Right. What people might not understand is to be a leader means you're constantly learning, which is making mistakes, which is going through hard times, but it's also just applying things you learn and begging and borrowing from other people, because that's what people do with your stuff and you do it with other people's stuff. And it's a fabulous thing to see. And that's why these books are so good, because you are really integrating so many different things. So I love, we don't do ads on our thing. We don't have sponsors yet. We haven't figured that out. But this one's sponsored by Build a Business You Love. Go read this book. Learn about these 5 stages and the 6 things you need to do. I wish I had known this stuff, and now I do. So Dave, thank you for being here. This is a huge thing for us to have you on the podcast.
We're honored. Thank you.
It's a huge thing for me. You're a dear friend, a generous man, and this has been a blast.
Well, we love us some Pat Lencioni, and we're glad you and Laura are now in our neighborhood, and we get to have dinner together and hang out. And I get to tell people I know Pat. There we go. I'm on name drop.
All right. Well, I'm going to do the same then. Dave, thanks for being on. We love you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks to everybody listening and at the table. We'll talk to you next time.